Alright, solving by square roots. To solve by square root, to use this method, you just gotta make sure there's only one x squared. You can't have like x squared plus x plus like 16. You can only have one x squared. So all you're gonna want to do is isolate that. So x squared, then add 64 on both sides. Just assume that equals 0. And then you're just going to want, at this point, to cancel out that squared. So you cancel it out with the square root. So x equals square root of 64, which is 8. And because square roots can be positive or negative, I want the positive and negative sign. And that's it to a simple problem like that. Alright, next, just a little bit more, but still, isolate your x. Put your 56 on the other side, and divide each side by 2, and get rid of your squared, so you're going to do the square root of each side. Now, when you have 28, it's not a perfect square, so you're going to want to break it up into a simplified square root form, because you don't want an irrational answer. It's just harder to read. So to get a simplified version, you're going to want to start dividing by perfect squares so you can get perfect square on the outside. So like 28 divided by 4, 28 divided by 9, and so on. Just keep going until you find something that divides by nicely. And in this case, it ends up being 7. Also, you can just put in your calculator, divided by 2 squared if you don't know the square root. But, anyways, 4 times 7 equals 28. So you can break it up, and it will equal the exact same thing. Square root of 4 times the square root of 7. Since those multiply together, it still is the same thing. But now, it's easy to simplify. So x equals, simplify, 2. Square root 7. And don't forget your positive or negative, since square roots can be both. Alright. And lastly, still going to want to isolate that x squared. Just minus that 20 on both sides. X squared minus 4. Well, x squared equals minus 4. And then you're going to want to do the square root of both sides. And now, you can't have a negative sign inside of a square root if you want a real answer. So, you're going to want to break it up. X equals square root of negative 1 times square root of 4. And this way, you have that, and it simplifies to 2. But the negative 1, it simplifies to I in math. And sometimes when you're like going through and you get an I times an I, it equals negative 1. Hard to write on a tiny whiteboard sometimes, but still, it can result in real answers sometimes. So you're just going to want to represent it with imaginary. So x equals, don't forget positive and negative. And you're going to want to have your real part first, so 2. I. There.